What day of the campaign is it? Lola Calder, Jay Farrar. What day of the campaign is it? Lola Calder producing this show. We got Jay Farrar behind the board, Master Control. What day? You say 4? Lola says 4. Jay, do you agree with that? It's 4th day of the campaign? Is that what we're going with? Day 4 of the campaign? I've lost track. 8? 28? 17? Jay says 4 too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. It's day 4 of the campaign. Send me a text message, by the way, 514-790-0800. And the question is not what day of the campaign it is. The question is, what day of the campaign do you believe in your heart it is? Because those are two different answers. Let's talk about this campaign. That did kick off on Sunday with the snap call from Mark Carney. I'm looking at the conservative signs, Canada first for a change. I'm looking at the liberal signs, strong, Canada strong. Let's talk about the messaging and how you make a good message, a good slogan during a campaign. Eric Blais on the line. He's president at Headspace Marketing. He knows a thing or two about this business. Eric, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Elias.
Well, what day does it feel like for you? The campaign. What day is it? I've lost track.
There's this concept of the permanent campaign. Yes. I think we've been in permanent campaign mode for years.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, this is year 4, isn't it? Okay. Eric, you look at the slogans. You look at maybe the initial moves here. Why don't you tell, from your perspective, what sticks out in your mind? What do you think our listeners should be thinking about?
Well, you speak specifically about slogans. You know, it's very interesting for me because I obviously work more on the private sector, commercial sector, where, you know, slogans are things that you spend a great deal of time and resources getting it right, and then you constantly and consistently repeat it over many, many years, and then eventually it sticks, and then it's strongly attributed to your brand. Slogans in political campaigns are basically, you know, taglines that you're going to use for a month. Yeah. For a reason that I have a hard time explaining, they are highly forgettable. They tend to be pretty much 6 words that are thrown in the slogan generator machine of some sort. That's change, it's hope, it's together, it's forward, it's you, it's stronger. And they basically tend to blend and become somewhat, you know, forgettable. In part, as I said, because these campaigns are short-lived. In part, though, I think that political strategists, the people who are in charge of communications for these campaigns, they tend to view slogans with a bit of a dismissive attitude. And I say this with all due respect to these people who work really, really hard in war rooms and planning all these campaigns, but political slogans, in part, are forgettable because the folks who come up with them themselves don't necessarily see their value. I mean, I've heard on a big political podcast, the chief strategist of Pierre Poilievre once say that, as far as she's concerned, slogans don't really matter. The only thing that they really do is mobilize the troops, mobilize for the ground game, for people who are going to be door knocking, so that they have clarity on what the campaign is all about. That is a bit rich coming from someone who has been the architect of Pierre Poilievre's campaign for the leadership and now to form government, because he's the king of slogans. Yeah. Axe the tax, bring it home, Canada is broken, and so on. So, they do matter, except they're not very good.
As you talk, Eric, you know, what I've been thinking about, I'm thinking about those brand slogans that I still think about to this day, and 2 stuck out to me. Always Coca-Cola, I'm still thinking about that one, and McDonald's, I'm loving it. It's stuck in my head forever, will be stuck in my head.
Of course.
So how do you... Yeah.
I mean, slogans are meant to, you know, either capture a brand's values or vision or offer or attitude. They should, you know, evoke feelings of trust and hope, and in the case of an election, of course, urgency. You know, this is the time for this, time for change and all that. But that doesn't mean that they need to be void of creativity and the sort of, you know, language that will stick to your mind, as is the case with Coca-Cola and just do it. And,
just do it. That's right.
And all of these slogans that always need to also not stand on their own. They need to be connected with an overall promise. I mean, they're an encapsulation of a promise, basically. And now, in the political space, of course, as I've said, it seems to pretty much always, be about, we're the people versus the elite, the in it for you of the NDP, for example, patriotism, which is right now, of course, we're all on the same song sheet for that one.
So big. Yeah.
But, there's still room for me. When I think of political slogans, there's one, I wasn't born, but 1935, Mackenzie King had a slogan. He was fighting, R.B. Bennett, the Conservatives, who was, deeply unpopular at the time, and he had a simple slogan, all about fear and urgency, which is frankly what's needed right now, and it was King or Chaos.
King or Chaos. Yeah, not bad at all.
Not bad at all. Those things stick. Then there are examples of, major mistakes. And one is Pierre Trudeau Trudeau father in 1979 or 72, I believe. His line was, the land is strong, which is frankly pretty close to what Mr. Carney is saying about Canada's strong right now, but at that time, that was seen as arrogant. The land was not strong. People were not feeling good about their finances and the direction of the country. So, we talk about slogans as not necessarily having a lot of, power in the political space, but they can certainly hurt you, though, if they're way off.
Let me just ask you, with Eric Blais of Headspace Marketing, president over there, the Canada Strong from the Liberals, economically, we are struggling. There's the certain metrics, we're doing very poorly, but of course we're fighting that big behemoth, Donald Trump, right? So do you think this time around, Canada Strong, using that strong, that's actually a winning slogan for this campaign?
I'm not going to comment on whether or not Mr. Carney will live up to that on the campaign trail. That would be for another call, perhaps. But in terms of a slogan, it's a solid one for this one, I believe, because in a way it allows them to benefit from all this Canada Strong, pride, even the Canadian government's advertising that Madame Jolie just launched, a very anthemic spot with, and that's coming from the Canadian government, with, using Rick Mercer as a voiceover. So they're riding on that. So I think that's quite clever, actually, because they're going to benefit from, even from Doug Ford walking around with a baseball cap that says Canada's not for sale. So they're tapping into a general mood and a narrative right now that is not just the Liberal Party's narrative, but all politicians. I mean, Mr. Poilievre talks about Canada first, so...
He added can I ask you, because I think...
change, though. He added
what do you think about that addendum? Like, it sounds to me like he was, Canada first, too Trumpy. And I've got a text message from a listener saying Canada first is too Trumpy.
America first. And
right?
All that, yeah.
So he added the for a change to Canadianify it. What do you say there?
Well, and it's funny, in French, it's le Canada d'abord pour faire changement. You know what? Conservatives, they got this far on slogans, as I said, and now they're confused. Now they don't know. They lost their axe to tax. They lost, this whole bring it home, which is Madame Poilievre's creation. Apparently, she came up with that. That's probably, I'm not saying that that's a wrong slogan, but when you need a 2-minute video to explain what it means, you got a bit of a problem. It doesn't really work in French. It becomes le gros bon sens. Yeah. I think the Conservatives are really struggling right now to get their message straight, which is so shocking because they had been such pros at this. I mean, they're pros at attacking. They're pros at framing their opponents. They're pros at delivering these sound bites that just get repeated over and over again in advertising and at rallies, and they include, defunding the CBC and all of that. They had that, really.
And they've had the same leader. They've had the same leader now for a couple of years. They had that runway to just sort of get that down, right?
And then we're talking slogans, but then you think in terms of brand identity, it's very difficult for the Conservative parties to have their leader in front of a sea of red, of signage that's about Canada first. That's all, literally liberal red in a way. I mean, colors matter. That's sort of, particularly for, sorry.
I'm just saying we got to wrap up here, but it's a great point because the Liberals had always wrapped themselves in the flag. They had gone away from that the last few years, and now they're back at it in a very big way. Eric, got to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming on.
Pleasure.
That's Eric Blais, the president at Headspace Marketing.